We're moving on from Atlanta here on our Saints Inside Black and Gold edition, post Atlanta 26-24 misery, as the Saints now have dropped 2 in a row, 2-2 on the season after a 2-0 start. Jeff, welcome back from the ATL. I'm glad at least you have survived.
Yeah, man, that was unpleasant. Yeah, what you can say is this is not unfamiliar territory for the Saints. This is the second consecutive year we've started 2-0 and then found a way to end up 2-2. And if this trend holds, they're going to go out to Kansas City and shut out the Chiefs. And well, I'll be like, wow, this is the best thing ever. Then they'll lose the next 3 games. I'm just assuming that this is all going to go the same way. And it's that was ugly. That was ugly. We'll talk about it. Obviously, Saints lost 26-24. Second consecutive game they've had a go-ahead touchdown drive in the final 2 minutes of a game and did not close it out on the defensive side of the ball, which that's frustrating. In both instances, you could probably say they were one play away on the defensive side.
60 seconds.
Yeah, 60 seconds, no timeouts. 58-yard game-winning field goal. And we talked about this before coming on. It's like 10 years ago, forcing a 58-yard field goal as a potential game winner, you'd feel like, man, we won that scenario. He's going to make this, 1 out of 5 times, maybe?
Now it's like every single Saints fan was like, who's making this?
Now it was like when Jordan Howden had a chance at an interception, it kind of felt like that was the only chance they had. It was like, oh, they already got to the Saints 40, it's over. That's frustrating. But we're going to go through it. We're going to do our typical studs and duds segment. We're not live for this episode. I just don't have the emotional energy to do that right now. I'll do a live chat later in the week.
It is so draining, and we're not even playing.
Yeah, it is just emotionally draining. But you got an extra day this week, so hopefully that helps for some injuries, because we're going to talk about that. A lot of players are hurt. It's honestly tough because you're like, why did the defense fail in both of these scenarios? And it's like, I mean, who's out there? You got JT Gray playing safety in a clutch moment, right? Like that's never the plan. No offense to JT, but he's there to be a special teamer. But either way, we're going to go through that. We're going to start with the duds in this segment. We're going to do kind of 3 down and 3 up, because there were some good things that happened in this game. That's the frustrating thing, is a lot of good things happened. It's the inverse of what happened a week ago, where against the Eagles, it felt like you did all of the ancillary things you need to do to win a game and lost it because the offense couldn't generate anything throughout the majority of that game. And in this game, it actually, it was flipped. It was the offense actually, I thought, had a really solid day in general, considering the pieces you were missing and the injured players and whatnot. And all of those secondary things, like getting pressure on the quarterback and forcing turnovers, getting stops in key moments, not fumbling the ball, throwing a pick six. You didn't do those things, right? And you lost despite an offense that actually should have given you reason for optimism. Like, that's the thing, is we're going to talk in the second segment about, like, hey, what happened that went well and should make you feel a little better going forward. There were some things in that game that, at least on the offensive side of the ball, that you look at and you say, hey, we can build on this. But we're going to talk about that. And then in the final segment, I want to dive into more, we're going to talk a lot about Alvin Kamara and what he was going through in that game and what he was able to do. And, I just think, I don't know how if you're the Saints, you look at this guy and you say, hey, we're not going to pay this guy. So I don't know. We'll talk about that. And then we'll also kind of reset. And after the first, we're a quarter of the way through the season. It goes fast, as close as you can be to a quarter of the way through the season. Now there's 17 games. So we'll kind of reset, say where the Saints are, who are their next few opponents, where are they, what does the NFC South look like, what does the NFC at large look like, and how can the Saints kind of factor in. So we'll close out with that. But first things first, Steve, you got to hang out with Bobby after the game. How was he handling that just ugly day out in Atlanta? He's kind of, he has a weird perspective on it for just in general.
He basically said he knew going into the game, obviously it was probably going to be a tightly contested matchup. He even said it's either going to be Groupie or Koo hitting the game-winning field goal to take the matchup. So it wasn't that unexpected, but the beginning of the game, obviously, when you see the team gifting touchdowns away, not just the turnovers that hurt you, it's the turnovers turning into 6, you know you're hard pressed to survive that on the road against in a divisional matchup, and any matchup, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean that's what made that such a down moment, and just such a deflating moment. Because here's the thing: NFL games are close. Like so many NFL games are close. The margins are not that wide, and the fact that they gave themselves a chance to win a game that they gave away a free 14 points tells you a lot about, okay, this is a pretty good team. Like the Saints were the better team on that day, and they found a way to lose. And you can look at whatever culprit you want. I don't think it's an attention to detail thing with the coaching. I think it's just you had Rashid Shaheed making one of the dumbest decisions he's made and will ever make in a Saints uniform, and trying to field that kick inside the 5-yard line. I got a pretty close look at it. I was literally, if you watch the replay, you can see this dude in a white shirt standing there, just like 2 plays in this game. I got a really, really good look at it. It was that one, and then it was the play where Rashid tried to, Superman his way into the end zone, almost got it. And more on that in a bit, but. Man, it was just dumb. It was just a bad choice. And like Rashid, I think they've given him a lot of utility in the ability to make those decisions, right? We've talked about how he saved them a ton of yards, fielding kicks that you could have let roll, right? Bouncing kicks and kicks that are intentionally left short so that you don't want to touch him, and then they roll 20 yards, and instead he gets up and fields them and saves them yardage. He had a great kick return in that game to punt return in that game to set up the go-ahead touchdown and put the Saints in plus field position. And it was just a bad moment, and those things happen. It's just
was Rizzy okay, or did he lose his freaking mind?
Yeah, I didn't get I was over down by the end zone. Like I saw that happen 8 feet in front of my face. When he fumbled it, the closest person to the ball was me. Like if I had reacted faster, I could have dove on it. But no, I mean, it's just one of those things. It was like, you look at Rashid, and I can't even say like he's in like a dud from that game. Like he's my down player for that game, because I thought he had one of his best games as a receiver in a Saints uniform in that game. He had 8 catches for 83 yards. He picked a bunch of nice clutch catches, tough catches close to the ground. And it was just like, man, you just, you have those kind of out of your mind moments, like just brain fart moments. And that was one for him. And unfortunately it turned into a touchdown. So it's just so like, if he muffs that and then you recover it, you kind of like, wow, that was dumb, but it's not the end of the world. Just, it's like Jose Canseco when he like knocked the ball over for a touchdown or a home run. Like that's how it feels in that moment. And it's going to be one that you remember for a long time. And this is a guy who's an all-pro kicker returner, right? Like he's an elite kick returner. And I think that almost worked against him there, where if you didn't have the talent level he does when it comes to fielding kicks, you would never even like, you would have just been like, get as far out of the way as possible.
So is Shaheed in the down category, or just
that play, just that decision making, right? Like just that one moment, because of it, like you look at the rest of his game and he had a great game, right. But that was one of the worst plays I've seen a punt returner make. And, I caught up with Rashid in the locker room, and this is what he had to say.
Sorry, I know you just answered this, but could you walk us through
I dropped it. I didn't feel myself kind of drifting back into the goal line as close as I was. But it's a play that I got to make, and I put my teammates in that position that early on in the game.
And, obviously, you got to kind of put it back. How do you mentally just kind of block it away and just stop thinking about it? Like, what is your process after that?
Yeah, when I came to the sideline, my teammates, coaches, and everything let me know that everything was going to be okay. And there was a lot of games to be played. It was one of the first drives, and my opportunities were going to come.
The final drive, the last few weeks, or no, I guess not the final drive, but the go-ahead drive, there's some resilience in that offense, even in losing efforts. Is there something you can take from that? Obviously, the results aren't there, but, those kind of go-ahead drives are what you need to do.
I mean, we fought to the end. I'm super proud of my guys in the offense for, just kind of anchoring down and just being prepared for that moment. And that's the moments that we practice and we executed. We just got to finish in every aspect.
Yeah, like what you kind of touched on this, but like how do you take a game like this? You had so many injuries and still we're that close to winning, and like you said, like that shows a lot of fight. So do you come away frustrated y'all couldn't get it done, or like impressed that with all the things that happened?
A little bit of both. Of course, we're very frustrated and upset that we couldn't get it done, but we know that there's a lot more games to be played and a lot more opportunities that will be had. The guys stepped up today. We did have some injuries, but we had a lot of guys step up and play great games, and I'm super proud of them. And we're going to continue to have that. It's a long season, and more injuries will happen. So we just got to continue to stay ready.
Now you said you didn't realize you were that close to the goal line, but like fielding it within the 10 there, was that what you had wanted to do, or did you think you were?
I thought I was close. I didn't really feel myself kind of drifting back. My shoulders kind of didn't stay square to the ball. I kind of let it, kind of bounce off my shoulder pads, and that kind of happened. But I just got to continue to work hard so those things don't happen.
Yeah. So when I say I got a good look at that little Superman move, you see what I mean? I was going through pictures to put this video together. I was just like, oh, that looks familiar. But yeah, this is like the angle I had on that. And this is the angle I had. Like I was basically that far away as well from the fumble too. I just happened to be on both ends of the field with these two plays. But no, I mean, that's it's a frustrating moment for Rashid. It's tough because you want to you want to find someone to blame in all those situations. You want to say like, well, what could have been done differently to avoid that? And just, he knows he's not supposed to field the ball at the 3-yard line. He knows he shouldn't be doing that. It's just, it was a mistake and it happened, and it's frustrating. And it's tough to say it cost you the game because it happened so early and you had so many opportunities to potentially put up points. And again, I thought he played well after that. Just something to happen.
And obviously, to compound everything, you got Derek then ending up with the pick 6 and giving away 14 points on the road, and never a good recipe.
No, and the pick 6 is a tough one. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's like, hey, if I had to say something about Derek that he doesn't do well, it's necessarily, like there are points where you have to, I've seen, I think Tom Brady, he would go into practice and they would be waving tennis rackets around to try to simulate like the hands in the air and having to throw through those windows and avoid those. I just don't know if that's, there's a lot of things that Derek, I think, does well. I don't think he does that well. It seems like there's been a lot of moments that happened a couple times last week, and that moment there where it's like, you just got to find a way to navigate that traffic, that kind of muck in front of you. And a few times I've been like, he could have been better there. Yeah, like like Matt Judon's right in front of you. You can't throw it into his arm. Yeah, and I don't know. It's tough to say as someone who's never friggin' done it. But it does seem like that happens to Derek more than it should, is the ball getting batted down at the line. And a lot of instances you'd be like, yeah, whatever, it's in the dirt, it's a dead play, but you're not gonna lose a ton on it. But when you constantly are getting balls batted around like that, bad things happen. And that's the most insanely bad luck I've ever seen on a batted ball. Like, that's wild. Like, normally a ball gets batted and it goes to the left, to the right, down. Unless it gets batted directly to someone, it's usually
not for the Saints.
At least that close to the line, right? If a ball gets tipped downfield and it gets kind of knocked in the air, that'll happen. That was basically a volleyball set that just went straight up. And it didn't go straight up in a direction that would help you. It went straight to the middle of the field where all the linebackers and defensive backs are staring right at it. And it's just
pluck, thank you, and bye-bye.
Yeah, and DA talked about it, and I think he was right. We'll go back and watch that replay. It's the play is a quick screen out wide to Olave. I think he said Kamara in his postgame. It was Olave. And you can see that when he's getting ready to throw, the nickel blitz is coming through. Juwan whiffs on it. And Juwan, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you about Juwan. But, the pressure got upfield so fast. If he throws that, like the initial read, it's a pick 6 for somebody else. Because that defender is literally going to step right in front of the ball, catch it, and run. Instead, he pumps, doesn't throw it, and then it tries to dirt it in front of him. But Matt Judon's coming through and tips it up, so it ends up being a pick 6 anyway. But it just didn't work. Like, the screen game didn't work in that moment. And it's like, again, it's just a situation where it's like you try to say, okay, who's at fault here? How could you have done it differently? And I think a lot of it's just bad luck.
Terrible, awful, no good luck. Yeah, you watch that. That was a moment in the game. You know, you see the ping, pang, boom, the ricochet, perfect landing spot for the Falcons to just, waltz on into the end zone. And Bobby just, we're watching in the sports office there, and he just turns to me and says, "That's the exact bullshit that would happen to me."
Yeah, and it's like, there's a ton of times you see stuff like that happen and the ball falls harmlessly to the turf for whatever reason. In that building, the Saints cannot survive anything like that. That's 21 points now over the last 2 years that the Falcons have scored without their offense on the field against the Saints.
Well, the last year, the pick by Derek was totally on him.
That was on him, right? But still, it's like, it's you can't give away free points like that.
Point fingers.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was a completely different type of, non-offensive touchdown. But either the point stands, like it's hard to win games. You're giving away free points like that. And here's the thing. I think I had tweeted on that start of that possession. It was like, okay, you gave up a touchdown before your offense even got on the field. So you were down 7-0. You got the ball back with like 9.5 minutes left in the second quarter, leading 14-10. Like that's probably the best case scenario for what you could have hoped for. And then it turns into that, and then 17-14, and that's how it was at halftime. But either way, one thing that wasn't bad luck and was just bad. Let's move on from the bad luck plays and move on to the just not good plays. And I thought the pass rush was incredibly disappointing in this game. And,
right.
It was a situation where I really needed I needed them to dominate. And that's the thing. I had high expectations for them coming into the season. I don't think they've been bad, generally speaking, but they haven't been as good or as impactful as I hoped they would be, especially in a game where, hey, they're missing the right tackle. You're going at Storm Norton. Like you should be able to, Chase Young didn't have a sack in this game. The Saints had 1 sack in this game against a quarterback that can't move. They had a few pressures. Chase Young had a QB hit. The strip sack came from Peyton Turner. And I do want to give him credit. He's a guy that we've given a lot of shit to and has not been healthy and has been unable to stay on the field. I think the last couple weeks he's actually showed pretty well. Nathan Shepard needs to grab the guy.
I was going to say, how does he not come up with that?
I don't know. It's just, it's like, but, I thought that was a really nice
bad luck, bullshit, twist of fate stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but I thought that was a really nice rush by Peyton Turner in that moment. It's just good. Yeah. It's good to see him making an impact. And that's what I've been saying about him is when he's able to get on the field and play, he's been impactful, right? Like you look at his sack to snap ratio and it's pretty high and he just hasn't got enough. There was a point in that game I watched him on the sideline after that sack fumble. He was like pacing. He was fired up and I don't know. It's good to see, but generally speaking, Carl and Chase, I thought had a really rough game in terms of impacting the quarterback. And I don't know how much of that was, you were without some key players and you got a little conservative. I thought they were going to send a lot more pressure. I was hoping they would send a lot more pressure up the interior. I didn't really see much of that at all. I don't know how much of that was Willie Gay going down and being without him. And again, you got a little more conservative on the defensive side of the equation. But just for perspective, like Dennis is almost never going to talk about a position group or to criticize a position group's performance coming off the field. He's almost always going to fall back on, I need to watch the tape before I can tell you for sure. This is what he said about the pass rush when he was asked about it after the game.
Look, I don't think we got enough pressure on the quarterback. And so I think we just got to look at, why that was. The pass rush has been pretty good, but I don't think we affected the passer as much as we needed to in this game.
That's a fact, Jack.
And I understand it's like he's not exactly throwing anybody under the bus, but like he typically will not criticize a position group like that. He'll be like, hey, I got to go watch the tape. But in that case, it was like, no, we didn't do a good enough job. And I don't know. That's frustrating. And I don't know if it's a scheme thing. I don't know if it's a performance thing. I haven't really got a chance to go back and watch the tape closely either, but there was just too many long drives by the Falcons in the second half of that game. Again, it felt like they kind of wore down against the run. In the last episode, we spent the whole time talking about Bijan, and at the end you were talking about Tyler Algier, and I think I said like containing him might actually be more important than containing Bijan because Bijan's just going to be that home run threat guy. Tyler against the Saints has been a machine. He's averaged 7 yards per carry in his career. Like this wasn't a one-off in this game. He had a monster game against the Saints a few years back.
Was Bijan hurt late, or they just yanked him because of ineffectiveness?
I mean, I don't know. He was dealing with a shoulder injury during the week, so I don't know. Maybe that affected him, but
it just seemed like Algier was the hammer down the stretch.
He was just better. He was better. I mean, the Saints have had a great plan against Kyle Pitts, who has basically done nothing against them in his career. In Kyle Pitts' career, he has 27 targets, 11 catches, 138 yards. Exactly half of that, 69 of those yards, nice, came in his rookie debut against the Saints. Like in his rookie season, he had 3 catches for 69 yards in that game. Since that point, he has had 8 catches for 69 yards, no touchdowns. And he just
not of this week.
And you did it. Yeah, you shut him out this week. Like, he has not been the issue, but Tyler Algier has had 41 carries for 287 yards. That's a 7 yards per carry clip and a touchdown. I think he had like 8 carries for 60 yards in this game. They just can't tackle that guy. And I don't know how much of that is, you're asking backup linebackers to do it. You're asking defensive backs to do it, and they couldn't get him to the ground. But we couldn't stop their BYU running back, and they couldn't stop our BYU running back. The difference is we lost our BYU running back.
What was it? 7.5 yards a carry for Algier?
Something like that. I mean, it was
absurd.
It was way too high. And here's the thing. All that said, they kicked 4 field goals on offense. They did nothing on offense. So I see, it's, you put them in a scenario where they needed to get a stop in the end of that game. And, eliminating yards entirely has not been a strong suit of this Saints defense, but they have been very good in the scope of they're not allowing touchdowns. They're allowing the ball to get moved, and they're being on the field too long, and you got to find ways to end drives earlier and get off the field on 3rd down. But there is something to be said for, like, you're keeping teams out of the end zone. And if you didn't allow 14 points that the defense had nothing to do with, you probably win that game. And the defense did enough, even without Demario Davis, without Tyrann Mathieu at the end. So I don't know. It's tough. But no, I mean, that was a game that I desperately wanted the defensive line to prove me right and just impact that matchup, and they didn't. They just didn't. Flat out did not. And they got to be better.
I was honestly expecting a big day from Chase Young. I thought this was going to be the game he's going to show out against the Falcons. And so, yeah, that was really disappointing.
I watch these other games, and it's like I see Chris Young impacting a game and changing it in a way that they won a game they probably should have lost. The Chiefs. I watched the Broncos get to Aaron Rodgers repeatedly, and they won a game that they definitely should have lost. And then I watched the Saints. I'm like, where is this pressure? Where is this game-changing pressure that we're supposed to be seeing? It's just not there. Like, he's like Chase has generated quarterback hurries, but I think Bobby said this is like, you don't get paid on quarterback hurries. You get paid on sacks. And to this point, he's got what? 1 sack, a half sack? That's not good enough. You got to be better.
And what's crazy, obviously, in this you would never guess that Derek Carr statistically had a better game than Kirk Cousins.
I don't think Derek played badly. Like, I genuinely don't. I mean, you ran the ball well. You take shots downfield. This is
the pick six is obviously the black eye.
Yeah, it's the black eye. But even then, it's like he didn't make a bad decision per se. Like, he
just was crazy.
It's not like he misread the play. It was like, hey, okay, you need to find a way to not throw a fucking interception there. Like, you need to find a way to not throw the ball into Matt Judon's arm and let him tip it up. But that said, it's like, you want to criticize the quarterback. Usually it's like, well, he should have thrown here, or he missed an open touchdown, or he had an open guy and he missed him downfield. He didn't see much of that. I don't think it was his sharpest day, but it definitely, I would say he had a better day than Kirk on the other side.
Imagine if they could have gotten to Kirk some.
Yeah, right. And that was, so I think both teams, the Saints had a sack and 4 quarterback hits. The Falcons had a sack and 3 quarterback hits. We'll talk more about the offensive line in the second segment. But what made Kirk's day a lot easier was he decided to pick on Paulson Adebo, and it was
Paulson.
It was the right decision. Yeah, I called him Penalty Adebo. When I was leaving the hotel, I was going down, and like the elevator stops, and who would walk in but Paulson Adebo in the morning? And I'm going to the lobby because that's typically where the buses are, and I don't know where the buses are, but I'm like, I bet if I go to the lobby, I'll find it. Paulson, he's wearing sunglasses. He stares at the elevator buttons, and then he hits like the 3rd floor. And we get to the 3rd floor, and it's like, this isn't right. And he hits the second floor, and he gets to the second floor, and he gets off the elevator. I'm like, oh, maybe he should, surely he knows where the buses are. And so I follow him out of the elevator, and then he gets into the hallway, and he's like, oh, wait, this isn't right. And he comes back, and he gets in the elevator, and it's like, what's going on? They go down to the floor. I feel like that's a good microcosm for how his day went, because he just kind of looked like lost and confused out there too much of the time. And he led the team in tackles.
The good news was he yanked on your shirt, and he got you back in the elevator.
I wish that would have been better. That would have been a better story. Maybe I'll make it up next time and come up with a better anecdote. But it just, it's the second consecutive game that he was picked on in coverage. Now, like you talk about, hey, he led the team in tackles. Like I said last week, that's not a good thing. When your cornerback is leading the team in tackles, that means he's allowing catches. And he had 3 passes defense. He had the interception. He made some plays. They targeted him over and over and over again. And, it does give you an opportunity to make some plays on the ball. He had, 12 tackles? I heard Bobby after the game trying to figure out, well, I watched this game, and I thought for sure that I would look at this list and it would say, hey, Saints penalties way higher than the Falcons. And
shit, right.
And it didn't, but that doesn't mean, here's the thing. So they had 6 penalties for 60 yards. The Falcons made mistakes too. I mean, the center had these terrible, Newsel had 2 of the worst penalties in the worst possible moments, and the second one didn't cost them. But, here's the thing. The Saints would have had a ton of penalty yardage, except 2 of the 3 pass interference penalties on a Debo got declined because the catch got made anyway. So even if he had forced an incompletion there by fouling, the play would have still counted, and you would end up be looking at like 8 penalties for 120 something yards. Now, Darnell Mooney, who had a great game, but I would have guessed he was more impactful than he was. 3 catches, 56 yards. It just seemed like every catch he made was over Paulson Debo's head, and Paulson was in tight coverage on most of them. And that's the frustrating thing, is I don't think Paulson's a bad player. I think Paulson's a good player, and I think Paulson's going to get paid. But we're in year 4. And the biggest issue for him has and continues to be, he gets to the top of the route and he panics and he grabs and force him to make a play, man. Force him to make a play. You're in good position. Trust your technique and make that guy make a nice catch. If he makes a great catch, fine. We'll live with it. You can't give it to him for free. And it's happened too many times, and it's happened in too many big moments. Like you go back to his rookie season, and it was Cordell Patterson beating him down the sideline for a big play in a very similar situation. Younghoe Koo hits the game winner there too after you had a late game go ahead touchdown drive against the Bucks in 2022 rather. It's that pass interference down to the goal line on Mike Evans, and it's just another situation where you're there. Don't foul. You just play defense, man.
And I feel like, unfortunately, now he's got like the reputation, so refs are definitely looking for it.
Yeah, right. And he's getting attacked, and I don't know if that's because Marshawn's in great coverage or not. It's funny because it's like Kirk is clearly a guy who, and Tom Brady was this way too. It was like, I'm not going to throw at Marshawn if I don't have to.
Right.
And Drake had a decent day, but he had 6 catches on 12 targets, 64 yards, and it was like very clear that they were trying to pick on Paulson, and it was the right call. And, you talk about, okay, why didn't the Saints extend Paulson ahead of this season? You look at some of the contracts around the league, guys like Tyson Campbell getting paid big bucks. And I think that's, when you're talking about, are we going to pay this guy, and leverage our salary cap when we have the depth at cornerback to probably replace him? And I think you're probably looking at a situation where next year you're saying, hey, well, we appreciate everything you've done. You're going to get paid as a free agent. Like Paulson's going to get paid by somebody. I don't think it's going to be the Saints.
That to me is a great question, because that popped up to me too. It's like, are you going to keep Marshawn and Paulson? Do you pay Paulson or you let him go? And do you keep Marshawn?
I think it's more likely you keep Marshawn, and I've been impressed with Marshawn this season. And you elevate a guy like you probably move Alante outside and make Coolidge your slot corner, and maybe draft another cornerback because they like to have that 4th option there. But I just think this game was such a good microcosm of like the highs and lows of Paulson, because he's made some spectacular plays. He's had some spectacular games. That game against the Bears last year was one of the best singular cornerback games I've ever seen. He had 3 takeaways, 4 takeaways? Like he basically single-handedly won you that game on defense. The interception against the Colts last year down by the goal line. He had a nice interception his rookie season at the goal line against Taylor Heineke in Washington. It's like he's made plays, and he can make plays on the ball. there's just been too many examples of panicking on double moves and grabbing. And it's so clear that that's the book on him right now. And teams are going to keep trying to take advantage of it. Sometimes it's going to work out for them. Sometimes it's not going to. But in those big moments, it's become too clear, and you can't look past it. And it's frustrating. It costs you a game. Because I don't think Darnell was going to catch that ball.
What's frustrating too, we saw him, I felt like, take another step forward. Obviously, last year he, I think, was leading the NFL in passes defense. Tom?
Well, you're going to lead the NFL in passes defense when they throw at you constantly.
Right, but I mean, it was a case where you couldn't say, oh, they were avoiding Marshawn because Marshawn was hurt then.
No, and I mean, again, he's a good cornerback. He makes plays on the ball. Yeah. And I'm just talking about, these are very clear warts that you look at a guy and you say, are we going to pay? Like, it's not, hey, do we desperately need him versus do we need to pay him? Because, like, they do want him. Like, he's their best option right now. But do they need him to the level that you're going to pay $70 million over 3 years for him?
How do you teach a guy to be less handsy? I mean, because that's obviously the penalties have been the biggest deal. And I feel like obviously the other team knows if I throw it up there, there's a good chance I'm going to get a flag because Paulson's over there.
Right. No. And that becomes a problem. And again, it's like, I'm still perfectly comfortable starting him. I think he's a very good cornerback too. I just don't, it's like you see a guy who has been unable to really kind of kick this issue that he's had in his penalties by year 4. And I don't know. We'll see. I just don't see that as a guy that you necessarily, it's like, oh, we can't afford to move on and find somebody else. I think you can. Either way, it's frustrating. And it's, you wanted to see a contract year for him. You wanted to see him, these are the plays that you make to get paid, right? These are the moments where it's like, yeah, they're going to go after me and I'm going to make that play. And just haven't seen that. So
yeah, not for nothing. He's obviously in an ideal situation. We talked about it, across from Marshawn. So you are going to see a lot of targets because they are avoiding what he brings out there. And it really, that says obviously tons about what he's bringing your defense, where you can almost erase a side of the field.
Yeah. I think Marshawn has showed that he can be that guy. He's still that guy. And I don't know, just a frustrating day, frustrating way to lose. It's the secondary 2 weeks in a row that lets you down in that big moment. And the secondary is supposed to be the strength of this team.
Right. You weren't supposed to you weren't supposed to be there at the end of the game because of what happened in the beginning. The defense was good for the majority, but then at the end, it wasn't even a lack of them standing tall. It's just that freaking penalty, obviously. And then after that, the Falcons didn't get any yardage. It was just, that big chunk of yardage from a flag setting up the field goal. And it just, I don't know, new depths in the pits of your belly after that.
Yeah. And I knew Koo was never missing that. Koo is so clutch. Koo has been such a good kicker for such a long time, but no one really talks about him. Everyone wants to talk about like Justin Tucker, and now it's Brandon Aubrey. I think it's because he doesn't routinely kick like 60-yarders, but I'm pretty sure he could. He has this really like weird approach. Like a lot of kickers, you'll see them kind of get like 6 feet off to the left and have this really long run up. He just kind of takes like 2 steps and hammers it.
What's crazy is back in the day, the Chargers cut him.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kick, it was so like it was from 50 yards out, and it was kind of jarring because he hit it through and it didn't sneak through. It went through clean to the point that it hit the wall behind the field goal post and went like bang. And I was like, what?
Right.
Anyway, so one more down, and it's just kind of general health and well-being of the Saints. And I don't even know how you reconcile this. It's easy to, like, again, there's all these situations you want to look at and be like, man, someone screwed up. There's someone that we can blame, and it's this person, and we'll fix it, and it'll be better. I don't know what you do, right? You're already going to this game. Eric McCoy's out with groin surgery. He's out at least 4 weeks. Kendre Miller's on IR already with a hamstring issue. You didn't have Demario Davis out with a hamstring issue. He was there. He was on the sideline with a headset, kind of operating as an assistant coach, basically, which I don't know, there's some value there. I like that. But Cesar Ruiz out with a knee injury, A.T. Perry out with a hamstring injury. Already, you went in with Willie Gay and saying, this is why we brought in Willie Gay, to be this guy. After about 3 plays, he goes out. His hand issue, initially I was told he was questionable, then he was probable, then he was out. So clearly that something I wouldn't be surprised if he's dealing with a broken hand. And maybe you can club it and play with it. I don't know. We've seen guys do that in the past. Either way, that was his moment. That's why you brought him in a game where you couldn't stop the run. He's this big athletic dude who can tackle. Like, you won't convince me that they wouldn't have been in a much better situation against Tyler Algier if they had him in there as the strong line or the Sam linebacker. So that's frustrating. Tyrann Mathieu goes out with a groin injury, so he's not in there for the final drive. I don't know if he would have made any difference on the Paulson Adebo penalty, and they obviously didn't let up a ton otherwise, but that's an issue. He's been dealing with a kind of a heel injury that morphed into a calf injury that's now morphed into a groin injury. He says he feels like they're all related. Alvin Kamara was already dealing with rib issues, like broken rib and a hip pointer. So he played through that. Chris Olave was dealing with a hamstring injury on Friday. He played through that and was effective.
For the love of God, stop with the injuries, Jeff.
Taysom Hill had a chest issue a couple weeks ago. He came back. Now it's a rib issue, and he left the game, and the game changed because of that. I don't even think that's all of them. I think there's more than that. But gosh, and here's the thing: I thought they were in really pretty good health over the first 2 weeks of the season. This has all kind of come in the last couple of weeks, other than Taysom, who got hurt in week 2. I don't know, man. It's like, do you blame the medical staff? I guess I just don't know what you do differently. It's
honestly, I blame the off season that has changed so much, and the conditioning of these guys is not as good, I feel, going into a year.
I guess, but I don't know. There's no conditioning that will help you avoid, getting your hand on somebody's helmet or whatever happened to Willie Gay. Like, that's just bad luck, right? I don't know if conditioning would help you.
Soft tissue things.
I don't know. Yeah, conditioning isn't going to help you avoid getting a broken rib. I think earlier this season, and I tweeted this, and I asked Taysom Hill about this, and I was like, hey, Taysom, as you get older, do you ever sit and consider, like, hey, maybe on some plays I'm not going to play like a snowplow and I'm going to avoid some contact with the idea that, hey, I want to be available. And he said, basically, if I ever start thinking that way, I think it's probably just time to retire. Like, I can't do that for my teammates. I only know how to play one way, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, this is why. This is like, you don't need to take that level of contact on every play. And at the same time, you kind of do need him to run between the tackles and be that bully. And it worked. The Falcons had no answer for him in that game. And the only criticism I have of that fourth down decision is the third down decision. Again, I think that was the right call to go for it on fourth down. There's people saying, if you kick the field goal, blah, blah, blah. No, that game completely changed if you kick the field goal. And what people don't weigh is like, hey, if I go on fourth down and I don't make it, they have to start at their 7-yard line. So I'm probably getting the ball back in plus field position. That's what happened. So it worked out. Either way, like, if you like that run on third down, if it's Taysom, I feel differently about it because they hadn't stopped him all day. Instead, it's a 2-yard loss on 3rd and 5 or 3rd and goal from the 5. And then you're going 4th and goal from the 7, and they're going to send all out pressure. And
I don't know. I was like, maybe Jamal or Prentice could have been that guy.
I get not from the 5-yard line. I just don't think you run there at all. But they were running the ball well. It's frustrating because the way that game changed when he went out is predictable, and it just gets hurt too often, and I guess, it's hard not to be like super dramatic about it when you're in that situation. But here's the thing, like, I thought the plan the coaching staff went in there with, I thought they gave their team a great chance to win that game despite all of the absences. There's nothing in the game plan for a fumble on the 2-yard line of your all-pro punt returner. The game plan is to trust that guy. There's nothing in the game plan for a bizarre tipped ball that on a screen. Like, screens are safe plays. Screens are generally safe plays. You don't see pick sixes on screens like that.
Not in black and gold land, you sure do.
And you still gave yourself a chance to win. So I don't know. This has been a long down segment. It's just,
well, it was a huge downer of a game, and obviously the implications were freaking much higher. And then you go see the Eagles get stomped in Tampa. You're like, where the freak was this team we were playing?
Well, the Bucks benefited from the fact that the Saints beat the shit out of the Eagles, and they had no one to play in that game. Like, they didn't have Devontae Smith, they didn't have Lane Johnson, they didn't have.
And I saw Chauncey was running his mouth before the game. I don't know what, if anything, he said afterwards. He's like, "Oh, basically, he was bringing his belt to whoop some ass in this game, and he didn't whoop nothing." He said,
right, put belt to ass, and I guarantee you, his teammates are looking at him like, "Dude, will you just shut the hell up? You're not helping us. You're not hyping us up. You're hyping them up. Like, you're getting them fired up. We don't need this. Like, we can do this on our own. We don't need you to give them as much bulletin board. We don't need Antonio Brown trying to snipe us on social media because he hates you." So I don't know.
So Baker and the Bucks, man, whoopity doo.
We'll see what happens in 2 weeks. That's going to be a tough one, and that's going to be on a short week. But anyway, let's wrap this segment up. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about some nice things, because we talked about the bad things, and it wasn't all bad, but it feels all. When you lose, it's all bad. You know, that's kind of how
exactly.
It's like, hey, we lost, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you all the nice things that happened because we lost, but I will sit here and tell you some of the nice things that happened because this is a podcast, and I promised I would. Anyway, this is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. Thanks for hanging in. 2-2 Saints, 2 back-to-back losses after back-to-back wins. Where have I seen that movie before? But Inside Black and Gold, we will be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller. We talked for 40 minutes about the bad stuff. Let's talk about some of the good stuff, because here's the thing. I've been told by a lot of people, like, this is the same old Saints. This is how they always lose games. And here's the thing. It's not. It has not been how they've lost games in the Dennis Allen era. And so if you're looking for a positive take out of this game, one of the positives is you've got some clutch offense the last 2 weeks, right? Like, there's a universe where, 3 defensive backs don't run into each other, and Paulson Adebo doesn't foul, and we're talking about how Derek Carr, despite all of these offensive line issues, found a way to engineer a go-ahead winning touchdown drive in back-to-back games against playoff caliber opponents. And instead, we're talking about, man, the Saints team can't finish. And that's where you are. But here's the thing. Last year, that wasn't the conversation. In the Dennis Allen era, that hasn't been the conversation. The conversation has been, when Andy Dalton was the quarterback, why can't we finish off these go-ahead drives, right? Remember the Bengals game? You had a chance, and you never got past midfield, right? Like, there was a lot of examples. The only example I could find during the Dennis Allen head coaching era where the Saints took a lead in the fourth quarter, where the Saints had a go-ahead scoring drive in the fourth quarter and lost, was in Minnesota, the double doink game. I'm sorry, against Minnesota in London, the double doink game. That's the only other example of a game where the Saints offense led a go-ahead scoring drive in the fourth quarter and you lost that game. Now, it's not that, and you could say, wow, well, that's cherry picking. It's not. That's a pretty basic scenario to look for in a season. And that had not happened outside, in the continental United States, at least, other than the last 2 weeks. So no, this isn't business as usual. This is a very different thing. And obviously that's a problem. Like, you can't be, DA's a head coach. Like, this reflects more on him than it probably did in the past. But the fact remains, you look at this team and you say, how did they lose to the Texans last year? They had a chance for a drive to tie the game or go ahead, and they never got into the end zone. Against the Jags, they had a chance to go tie a game, whatever, never got into the end zone. Against the Lions last year, I believe they had a chance, and instead he had a turnover, right? And, in this game, you needed that drive with about 4.5 minutes left. You get the ball around midfield, you go and you score a touchdown. Same thing against the Eagles. So, if I'm looking for positives out of this game, it's that in moments where you needed the offense to step up, go score a touchdown and give your team a chance to win, give you a lead late in the fourth quarter, you've done that in back-to-back weeks. Now, I'm not going to talk about in this segment the negative things, which is what the hell happened to the defense on these last 2 drives. But either way,
I was going to say this positive that you're all talking about, it's making me feel bad.
No, but I mean, here's the thing. Like, you need those drives to go win games. Now, the offense cannot then stop the defense from surrendering it. But if the offense doesn't go and score those touchdowns, then we have no conversation about the defense to begin with. So it's like, that's a positive thing. And because they lost the games, we're looking at it as a negative. But again, you didn't get those go-ahead drives last year. So from that perspective, I think you have to give the offense some credit for executing in those situations, in those clutch situations. And down the line, you're going to face these scenarios again. Hopefully, if the offense gives the defense another lead, they can close the goddamn game out. But I would rather be the team that has to have the defense close the game out and they don't get it done than fails in every opportunity to even get to that second step. And man, it's like you kind of just wish Alvin had gotten stopped on that third down so that they could have run the clock down. Because one of the funniest things on the broadcast, I tweeted this, like I got a belly laugh because Deuce, after the second failed Carr sneak, he was like, I don't even think they were trying to score on those last two plays. And Oz was like, well, I certainly hope not. Because they just did not work. And, I don't think they would have been mad if Derek had gotten in. But I agree. It didn't seem like that was their best effort to get over the line. It kind of felt like a play that was like, we can't lose a yard. We don't want to run anything where we might end up a yard and a half back from the goal line. We want so that when we run this Alvin Kamara play that we expect to actually get in the end zone, then we will be as close as humanly possible. But we also can't allow that to be a fourth down. It had to be on third down. Like, just in case it doesn't work, right? Just in case they guess right and they just blow it up, you can't let it come down to fourth down before you run that play. So it's hard to be mad about it, but like, man, if only that had been a fourth down play, they would have had 20 seconds to run that final drive and they probably don't win. So I don't know.
Talking about at least the positives, you mentioned them obviously a couple times there. Alvin Kamara, what he was able to do, obviously the numbers he put up in the game, but also just being able to gut through whatever kind of rib issue he's dealing with right now and just show you the kind of guy he is.
Yeah. And I want to talk about Alvin a bit more in the final segment, but no, I tried to get out of him like, hey, what were you dealing with today? And he wouldn't bite. And he was like, you have to go around and ask everyone in the locker room what they were dealing with, and go from there. But he was dealing with a broken rib, right? And you're running back and you're taking all that contact, and it was pretty clear early in the game they were trying to limit his usage, and then you lost Taysom, and
right.
Suddenly,
oh well.
Yeah, that's not happening. And here's what DA had to say on that.
Well, I think when you get into the game and he's on a roll like he is, it's kind of hard not to, try to get him some touches. But I think, that's where probably with Taysom being out, that changed the plan just a little bit. But we've got to have some other guys that can step up and make some plays other than just Alvin. And we do have that.
Sure you do. Yeah. So 26 touches.
I mean, Olave's game wasn't bad either. I mean, you would wish obviously he could have got in the end zone.
Yeah, no, 26 touches for Alvin. Nice. His fourth consecutive game over 100 yards from scrimmage. Like, that's nothing to scoff at. I think only Derrick Henry, maybe not even Derrick Henry. There's one other player who has done that. And Derrick Henry was a monster last night. I guess our decision that he was already done in Baltimore was a little preemptive. But no, I mean, you needed guys to step up and play through injuries, and both Alvin and Chris Olave did that. And like, Chris was not 100%, Alvin was not 100%, but they both delivered in big moments. I mean, Chris, it looked like he hurt his knee on one of those later catches, and he still made that big catch across the middle to get it down to the 1 yard line. And it was the best case scenario. Like, yeah, sure, you'd love to see him get in the end zone, but it was the best case scenario in that situation that he went down at the 1, because then you were able to get that down. Obviously it didn't work out for you because they still kicked the game-winning field goal, but you gave yourself the best chance possible. You burned all their timeouts. You got it down to a minute. And so no, he delivered. Again, I thought Rashid, we can be mad at Rashid for the missed fumble or the fumbled punt. but I thought he had his best game as a receiver, as an all-around receiver. Now, Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, that might be the best safety tandem in football. Yeah, it's not going to be a game where you get on top of the defense a ton. Like they're good to the point that, kind of like how you don't throw at Marshawn. You don't even assume, hey, I can make like that throw that Derek made against Dallas. That happens against a team where you feel like I like my guy better than their guy. And you make that throw against too high coverage where it's like, I'm just going to outrun them. That's not a throw you make against a tandem like Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons. It's just not. And that's why having those safeties is nice. But no, I thought the wide receivers played well. It's just the issue is, hey, you only have two that seem to be ever involved in any way. And I don't have a tight end that seems to ever want to make catches. I don't think there was a single catch by a tight end, maybe one. Maybe Juwan Johnson had one catch. He had 2 catches for 13 yards. But nothing down the field, nothing up the seam, nothing stretching the defense, nothing making it difficult for them from the tight end position. So, yeah, but I mean, Olave, 8 catches on 10 targets, 87 yards, along of 18. Shaheed, 8 catches on 11 targets, 83 yards, along of 25. Alvin, 7 catches for 42 yards, along of 11. I mean, that's kind of what your offense is.
Right. Yeah, the problem is obviously there doesn't seem to be that other dude in the wide receiving core right now. And it's like I've seen some folks saying, the Saints should go out on the market and try to acquire somebody. I really don't know if that's doable.
I mean,
the dream scenario, sure, I'd love Devontae Adams, but is that really happening?
Yeah, the issue with this wide receiver room, and I kind of talked about it last week, and it's not that you can't win with these guys. It's not that you can't move the ball with these guys. It's that when you end up in these situations where you need a guy to just go up and win. Chris, I think, has gotten better at that. Shaheed, that is still remains one of his bigger issues, is I just don't see him as a guy that you can throw a ball up to and have him go get it. And you saw it on, I think, 3rd and 4th down, where the Falcons brought, a zero blitz, and all the quarterback can do is identify one-on-one and throw him the ball. Like, you don't have time to go through your progressions. I know Juwan was open on a crosser on that 4th down play, but you got to get the ball out. And I don't know what the read is there. I think it's predetermined. It's like, I have one-on-one, I'm throwing it. And like with a guy like Mike Thomas, with a bigger bodied guy, you feel like, hey, he's going to go up and he's going to bully that guy and he's going to make that catch. Look at what he did against the Falcons in week 1 of 2022 in DA's first ever head coaching game. That's what you did there. They sent pressure. Jameis just threw it up to Mike Thomas, and he went up over him and caught it and pulled it down. And that's the type of wide receiver one play.
That's 2 times you've said his name. It's like Beetlejuice. Don't say it again now.
Check Twitter. He might be there. But that's what the Saints don't have. And Rashid, he's bulked up. I mean, I don't know if you go back and you put a picture of Rashid from his fresh rookie season next to a picture of Rashid now, he looks a lot different. Like, I noticed that in the locker room after the game. Like, his shoulders are built out. Like, he's probably put on 10 pounds of solid muscle since coming into the league, but he's just never going to be that physical battle for the ball type receiver. And that's where you lost, like that play, that 4th down play. He had a chance. He just couldn't get he could only get one hand on it. He wasn't able to corral it. And so sometimes that's the difference, but I can't be too mad about what they did. It's just a personnel issue.
Yeah. And you would wish you could see somebody like step up in that wide receiving core, but I don't know what's the deal with A.T. Perry at this point.
He just keeps getting hurt. I mean, you can't do anything with a guy who keeps getting hurt in practice. Yeah, it would have been nice, right? It would have been nice to have him in that situation. He's a guy that I'd like to go throw it up a jump ball to, and he's not on the field.
No, the high that we were on the first 2 weeks, going back to the negatives with the injuries has just been ridiculous.
Yeah, trust me, I get it. All right, one more thing. There's a couple other things. Okay, just before we get into the final one, Matt Habel, another good day.
Hey, good point. I wanted to bring up the punter too, right?
I gave him a lot of crap, and he's been delivering, right? Like 3 punts. He pinned the Falcons at their 12, their 10, and their 10. The last one, it was a 48-yard net punt. The net punting yardage numbers are never going to be good when the Saints are asking their punter to punt from near midfield constantly. And that's been the case. That was the case last year. That's been the case this year. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing, right? It means that you are at least getting those first couple first downs so that you're not punting from back near your own end zone. Like, constantly asking your punter to try to kick 60-yard punts is actually an indictment on your offense. So it's tough to be like, well, this is terrible. They keep asking him to make these kicks, but all you can ask your punter to do is punt from where the fourth down is. And I think after that the shaky couple kicks that he had against the Panthers, I think he's been really solid. So I got to give him some credit.
No, definitely a key to the Falcons offense, not having success either, being able to pin them inside the 20 all those times.
And I think people underestimate field position. Like when people people complain about that fourth down attempt, and I get it because it's just like, oh, take the points. And it's like, it's really easy to say that after it's already failed, right? Like that's the thing that drives me nuts is I don't hear people complaining about going on 4th and 1 when they get it. I only hear people complaining about going on 4th and 1 when they don't get it, right? And that can't be the analysis because you're not making the determination from the future. You're making that determination on what to do in the present. So it has to be, is this the right decision now? And if it is, don't complain about it after it doesn't work. Tell me before that you think this is the wrong decision. And don't be like, Taysom Hill, we knew it all along. It's not how it works. And one thing that people always fail to factor in when you're talking about going on 4th and something from inside the 10, right? I would have loved for that to be closer, even though you lost 2 yards on 3rd down.
Yeah.
But when you don't get it in that scenario, it means that they have to start their drive backed up. And you look at the result of that. They had to be very careful about what they did. They have a quarterback who is not mobile and cannot extend a play. So if you get pressure in that scenario, what's he going to do? Is he going to throw it away? Is he going to get a intentional grounding from the end zone and suddenly get a safety? Like you take a chance at scoring a touchdown, knowing you need a stop either way. And I actually thought, DA explained this pretty well. And a lot of times his explanations for these things are just like shake my hand like, oh, damn it. But I thought he actually explained this pretty well. So let's listen.
I think just being aggressive and look, we knew we were going to have to make a stop anyway. We knew we were going to have to stop them anyway. So whether we kicked 3, they were going to get the ball and we were going to be in a 4-minute mode there. So that was the decision to be aggressive. Let's try to score the touchdown. They got the ball at the 7 or 8 yard line, 7 yard line, I think it was. And so we knew we were going to have to make a stop anyway. We got good field position. We went down there and, scored the touchdown. If we kick the field goal there, I think the game doesn't play out the same way. I think it plays out, differently. And so I don't think we can make the assumption that they wouldn't be able to, make a long field goal to end the game.
And that's the thing that annoys me when people talk about that type of 4th down decision. It's not like, okay, look at the final score and add 3 points to it, and suddenly it's tied and suddenly the Saints are ahead. That's not how it works, because if you kick the field goal in that scenario, you're down 23-17. You kick a field goal, you're down 23-20. Now, you don't get the luxury of having them start backed up after you kick a field goal. You're down 3 points against the team that has run the ball down your throat the entire second half, and all they have to do is take a couple minutes off the clock, kick a field goal, and then instead of getting the ball down 6 with 4 minutes, you get the ball down 6 with 90 seconds, maybe no timeouts, and you're in a position where you have to go score a touchdown in that scenario, and you're going to be back at your own, 30, 25. So the idea that you kick a field goal and everything else goes the same is just not accurate, because you see how an offense operates differently inside their 10-yard line, especially when you're nursing a lead. And you're banking on, hey, I think my defense in this scenario can be aggressive, go after them, and they're going to be conservative, and we can get the ball back in plus field position, needing a touchdown anyway. One way or another, you needed to get a stop. And I like my chances trying to stop them from a drive that began inside their own 10 when in a moment where they're not going to take any risks. They're not going to throw the ball down the field. I don't have to keep 2 safeties deep. Heck, I want them to throw the ball down the field. So I can be extra aggressive. I can put extra bodies at the line, and instead, and it worked. And you got the ball at their 42. So I don't know. Like I get tired of this idea that it's like, okay, well, they lost by 2 and they didn't kick a field goal here, so that was a bad decision. That's not how it works. And that game plays out completely differently. If you think the Saints would suddenly have been able to tackle Tyler Algier on that drive if they didn't, there's just as good of a chance that the Falcons end the game on that drive if you kick a field goal. So I don't know. I think
I was always under the school though of you take the points on the road kind of thing. So that definitely is like branded into me.
Yeah, and I get it. If it was like an 8-point game or a 10-point game, yeah, you take the points there, no question. Like, but in a game where it's like it's a one score, if one way or another, I need to get a stop and score.
Right.
I want to take my chance there and go get it. And again, it's like my issue is not the decision. My issue is the execution and maybe the play call on third down to go for a fourth down, because it's the second game in a row where that fourth down decision came after a play that feels like it was designed for Taysom Hill. And I would rather just be aggressive on both downs, right? Like last week it was 3rd and 1 and you did that kind of sprint out, direct snap to Alvin Kamara. And it's like, nah, just run a play action and go to the end zone. Like they're going to think they're expecting you to run. Use that against them. If you're going to go on fourth down anyway, I just run your best play twice.
It was definitely, you always can second guess everything from even the play calling to the decision. But
yeah,
man, I hate to be bringing up negative stuff too in the positive or up segment, but another dude, I'm just like, where again is Jamal Williams in this offense? I don't know quite his role.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Kendre Miller comes back and suddenly you have a 1-2 punch, because right now you don't, especially when Taysom's not there, which the last 2 weeks you haven't had Taysom really.
I've heard rumors from the mountaintops that something is going on. Kendre Miller is close.
Well, he should be back at practice. That doesn't mean that he'll play in week 5, but
right.
You can, I mean, you have a 21-day practice window regardless. So they're just going to, whether he's ready to go or not, they're going to have him there. So you're going to open that window so that if he's ready on week 5, you can get him out there. I don't know. Either way, it's just, you are putting too much on Alvin right now.
For sure.
You can't do that. Okay. This pod has already gone way too long, but the biggest positive I'm going to take away from this game is you can survive with Shane Lemieux at center. Like, was it perfect in that game? Absolutely not. But you're talking about a guy who's making his first ever start at center. He didn't play center in college. He didn't play center with the Giants. He's never taken a snap at center in his professional or collegiate football life. And I thought he played solid. Like, was it perfect? No. The last drive before halftime really got ugly. And I think maybe that was kind of like, you're wearing down a little bit on the offensive line. You have played all these snaps and the interior pressure became a problem on that drive. You would have liked them to pick up that zero blitz a little bit better on that fourth down that we just talked about. There's issues, there's things you work on. But again, you're talking about a guy taking his first career game at center, and theoretically you'd be like, hey, he should continue to improve. He's going to get at least 4 starts there, barring injuries of his own. So you need that. Like, this game, one of the things that drives me nuts about sports analysis is it's like, oh, they lost this game, season over. Why even bother thinking about it? They're 2-2. We're going to kind of break down where they are. Like, you need to win games. And you need to win games without Eric McCoy, because Eric McCoy is going to be at least 3 more games, probably more. So the fact that I feel like Shane is capable in that role, which is something I was not sure of going in. Like, you didn't see any bad snaps, right? You didn't see any plays. Like, their center, the Falcons center, got 2 penalties called on him in key moments. And that cost them, or it cost them once. It should have cost them the second time. You didn't see that with Shane, so I can't be mad about it. I feel like he had a solid day. And this patchwork offensive line, the right side of it was really sketchy a lot of the time. But that's not super surprising. You had Landon Young there instead. But I felt like that was a positive that I took out of it, is the offensive line they weren't the reason you lost. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, I don't think the Falcons are the greatest test defensively, but I can't believe I'm going to say this. Oh no, here comes Steve Spagnuolo's defense with the Chiefs.
Oh, they're going to blitz you. They're going to blitz you, and Chris Jones is going to be a problem. But either way, I mean, the Falcons are a challenge. Are they a top 5 defensive line? No. Are they a top half defensive line? Yes. I don't know exactly where they rank in there, but
for a patchwork O-line, though, yes, that was impressive, at least, because they, like you said, they stood out like, oh my God, Derek Carr is getting killed. The run game can't do anything. They stood their own.
1 sack, 3 QB hits. So, all right. And I did catch up with Shane for a quick interview after the game. That's what he said.
Obviously not the finish you wanted, but how'd you feel? The offensive line, obviously yourself at center. How'd you feel about today?
I felt good, man. This was obviously I want to win, and that's what it comes down to in the league is winning games, and we gotta do more, And but I'm happy with how guys rallied and how we played. We just hit a finisher at the end and win the game. So, yeah.
And just for you specifically, how obviously that's a new position. You've been working at it, but that's still different from game reps. How do you feel like that went for you?
I thought, obviously there's some things to work on. Day one, now I got some film to look at, some things to learn at. I was in some situations I've never been in before. I find myself at center, being in these positions every day, like first start on the road, silent count, that's a whole new world for me. So just things to build on, man. But yeah.
I mean, that last drive, coming out, obviously you got down to the goal line, you pick it back a minute.
Yeah.
What was kind of the message in the huddle before that final drive?
Just can't, just one play at a time. I just kept saying, draw a line in the sand, cross it, draw a line in the sand, cross it. No matter what happens, you got to keep going, and obviously we got to do more there at the end to win. And but yeah, I'm happy with the way that everyone fought and everyone binded together this week.
Yeah, and so hopefully you get Caesar back. I think one of the issues you ran into was like Landon Young, as much of a gamer as I feel like he is, he's not a right guard. He'll survive there. It's not his ideal position, and not having Caesar next to Trevor makes Trevor worse. And then you end up having some problems on the offensive line that might have been solved if you just had a veteran. Like there was a couple plays that I feel like Trevor just kind of misread what he needed to do on a block, and there was one play that he kind of just threw his right the right end or his end right where Alvin was going, and it was like, on a different type of run on a cutback or like, it might have worked. Instead, this is kind of a wide toss play, and you basically just gave him a head start. And so I don't know. Like I feel like there is something that there's more that's just lost with losing Caesar than is just, hey, we have to have a backup right guard. So that's something. But either way, again, while there were some tough moments, I didn't feel like that offensive line prevented you from winning. And hopefully as you get more and more reps with that group, and ideally, hopefully Caesar can get back this week, you can start to see that group improve.
Yeah, because it's an extended time, obviously, for McCoy, and I don't know if it's clear how the severity with Ruiz and when maybe he could get back in the mix.
Yeah, the positive is you have an extra day this week to recover.
Right.
Now, the negative is after this week, you have 2 short weeks. You have Monday night into Sunday, and then you have Sunday into Thursday. And the Broncos defensive line looks good. So,
that's some nasty ass scheduling right there.
It is. It is. So we'll see. And if you can get out of that, I mean, we'll talk about this on the back end, so we don't need to talk about it now. But yeah. So again, the biggest question going in for me was the offensive line. I thought they answered that pretty well. Now, again, it wasn't perfect, but like in terms of replacing McCoy, I feel like Shane proved why they put him in that spot to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, did we get to see any action from Hergel at all, or no? He was just activated.
No, we did see Oliudo forget what his job was on a. He's the jumbo lineman, and he just apparently didn't. I don't know if he didn't know that, if he just missed the call because he was late getting on the field. They had to burn a timeout in the first half. They still scored on the next play, so it didn't cost them, but it's just kind of a foolish thing. And there was a couple of plays.
The merit right there.
Taliesin Fuaga had a alignment penalty where he, there was what we didn't talk about, that touchdown drive. It started with back-to-back penalties. Like you got the ball at the 42, you immediately had a penalty on Shaheed, backs you up to the 47, penalty on Fuaga, or I think that might have been reversed, backed you up to the your own 47 or whatever, or your own 42. So like that drive was even more impressive when you consider it started at 1st and 20.
Right.
So I don't know, but
that's a positive.
But those are the issues that you expect to see without your starting center, without your kind of group leader, the line leader, if you will. And that I didn't think there was a ton of that. There were a few penalties, but nothing crazy. Trevor didn't fight anybody. There weren't any bad personal fouls on Trevor, so that's a good thing.
There was a drive, I think, where there was like a Trevor and a Fuaga penalty in one drive, and it was like, come on, guys.
I can't recall. Yeah, I
have
mean,
to
there
go
were some
back
dumb
and check
penalties,
for
but you
sure.
only had 6 accepted penalties, so it wasn't a terrible day. Either way, that's it. That's the end. Anyone else you want to highlight before we move on?
Trying to think of anyone. Unfortunately, I wish I could, give Paulson his due for getting a pick in the game, but just the penalty, and that really obviously puts a huge ding on it. But we mentioned overall, I'm still high on Paulson the player, but man, oh man, those penalties have just come to be too much of a haunting factor in his game.
Yeah, and we don't need to go in on that again. We talked about it way more than we needed to. But no, I agree. My other stock up is I'm going for a Duck Dynasty beard, and I'm going to see how long I can grow it before the bosses make comments about it. Just wanted to share that with you. In case
You're going to have to. It'll be definitely noticeable on the sideline for sure.
Yeah, especially if they keep putting me in these photos.
Right.
That was I should frame that picture. It's basically a picture of me watching football.
Yeah, and then when your shirt, like I was saying, I don't know if you could hear, like your shirt's white right there, so it's like a perfect place for a signature.
I'll sign it and put it on eBay and then buy it.
We're like, oh, look how much I got for my signature.
It was bought by Jeff is cool 999 at hotmail.com.
Now you're sounding like some former LSU player making bets.
Keyshawn Booty. I know what you're talking about. But all right, let's close out this segment. We're going to come back. We're going to do a quick segment. First, I want to talk about Saints. Pay Alvin Kamara, please. And then we're going to kind of catch up on where the Saints are, what they have coming at them, where everyone else is on their, on their upcoming schedule. A lot of 2-2 teams in the NFL right now, and it's really going to be about what do you do next. So let's hit the break. We'll come back. We'll talk about that, and we'll get out of here. This is Inside Black and Gold. Thanks everyone for watching. Who dat? See you in a minute. And we're back. One more segment here on Inside Black and Gold. And we're going to catch up. We're going to reset quarter of the way into the season, 4 games into a 17-game season. So you can use the percentage points whichever direction you want. I'm going to call it quarter of the way into the season because that's where I feel like we are. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. First things first, we've got a quarter of the way into the season. And if you needed any proof of exactly how dedicated Alvin Kamara is to your program, to your team, to your city, you've gotten it. What does the guy need to do to earn a extra year on his deal or to earn whatever? Go call his agent, figure something out. Because first of all, the guy has not lost a step. That was the question going into the season for me. Were the last 2 years a product of Alvin declining or a product of Pete Carmichael not knowing his ass from his elbow? And I think as we go forward, we're getting an answer on that. I think the Saints offense has looked pretty good, even in these games they've lost, considering where some of the challenges they've faced are. And the issue has not been Alvin Kamara in any way. The issue has been, I don't know who else is going to run the ball besides Alvin Kamara, particularly with Taysom Hill getting hurt. So to me, that's like, guys, we're going to go into next year. We're going to be feeling the same way. You might as well just have him on a more secure deal that isn't going to cost you $28 million to keep him around. So that's where I am in terms of Alvin Kamara. Pay the guy.
The concerning thing to me is, are they going to keep him around? Because I feel like you would have gotten something done already. Obviously, what he's going to do this season, I'm more worried about him being damaged goods now than anything. And I just don't know if the Saints are going to be willing to extend the 29-year-old running back, even though he means so much, obviously, to this offense. Like you mentioned, his dedication to the team, to the city. I don't know if they really care about that at this point, or else they feel like they would have gotten something done.
I'll lose a lot of respect for this team if they run Alvin into the ground just because they can. I will. I genuinely will. Because one of the things I think this team has done to a reasonable level is take care of their players, right? Especially the aging players. You're not just sending guys out to pasture. Like, obviously a guy like Teron Armstead, it's like, he was dealing with injuries. It didn't make sense right? Like Mark Ingram was a weird scenario. I think that was more about mechanics than anything else. I don't know. I don't want to see Alvin play somewhere else. And I don't think you have to see Alvin play somewhere else. Either way, this is what Alvin said after the game in terms of how he feels about it. And we'll also hear from Derek Carr on Alvin.
I've been in this league, and we got a couple of people in this locker room that's played a lot of football in this league. And when you play a lot of football in this league, you realize that blowing people out and doing all that, it don't matter. Like, that's fanfare. You know what I'm saying? That's cool. You don't get no points for that. These are the type of games that matter. The ones that you close out when it's nail biting, one score. Like, these are the type of games that matter, because these are the games that the winning teams win. And when you look further down the line, when you get to December and January, when you look at those teams that's playing, you look back on their season, they're able to close these games out. So I don't care about beating whatever team 50-0. I don't care if we beat the team 80-0. That shit don't matter. And I think I kind of had that tone when after y'all interview, after the games, and y'all interview me, it's like, man, we way more football to play against better teams, and we got to play better ball. So we did a lot of things today to shoot ourselves in the foot and keep ourselves from being able to close out one of these games. So we just got to be better all around. Like, it don't even. I'm not even looking at anything good we did in this game, because we have to close it. We got to get a W. We got to be in the W column, not the L.
So let me ask you this. You look around this team, how many players on this offense could even make a comment like that and actually mean something?
Maybe the quarterback.
No. What is his history of being on one of those teams where it's like you look back and like, oh, we win all the close games, we are that team? You know, like, no, he's never been on. Like, he's been on a couple good teams, but and it's tough because you look at it and say, okay, well, your defense is part of that. It's not just on the offense. But Derek's never won a playoff game. Derek doesn't know what it's. There's no one on this offense other than maybe Eric McCoy would be the answer. Caesar to some extent, Taysom to some extent, that you can look at and say, yeah, okay, these guys understand what it takes to go win in the playoffs, to go win in the postseason, to be playing deep into January. And here's the thing: Alvin's a superstar NFL player. How many players of Alvin's caliber will be dealing with broken ribs and go out there in a year where they didn't pay him on the contract that he wanted, and still go up for every day of practice, show up for, obviously missed a couple days in camp, but nothing significant, and put his body on the line for a team that hasn't paid him? Tell me, look at all these players holding out, doing all that. You're going to run the guy into the ground and not give him any security beyond this year? Again, the Saints can do whatever they want. They can make whatever decision they feel like is financially prudent. I think I will lose a lot of respect for the decision makers in that front office if that's how they handle this season, is they run the guy who has meant everything to this offense since 2017 into the ground and say, good luck, see you later. Like, that to me will be a terrible, terrible way to handle this situation.
No, I would hate to see Alvin go too, but like I said, it's just the feeling. I don't know anything, obviously, but it just feels like the Saints would have made their move already to re-sign him already if that was the plan, instead of just letting him go ahead, see what you can get on the open market. Maybe we'll come around and offer you something there, but I don't think they're ready to make that any kind of long-term commitment to him.
I mean, yeah, sure, fine. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, and we've kind of gone over this. I'm just putting that on record, so we can go from there. I just think it's like, if the question to me was whether he had the juice to continue to get it done, and I was questioning whether it made sense, not knowing that, to commit to that without seeing it. You've seen it. And you've seen a guy who got 26 touches each of the past 2 weeks because you needed him to get 26 touches in games where one of those games, that workload got him a broken rib, and the next game he did that workload with a broken rib. So either way, that's where I'm in. That's where I'm at on that. And we can move on. How you feeling?
Man.
How you feeling? You feeling good? Feeling good?
No, it's a shitty Monday. I mean, Saints lost. My fantasy team sucks. And I don't know. You're going into a week against Kansas City's, and So a 3-game losing streak is definitely not just possible, probable.
My fantasy team is doing surprisingly good, although I have to try to survive. I need Jahmyr Gibbs to get me like 12 points to survive I had a 98% chance to win before the Sunday night game, and then that Derrick Henry 30 burger. Like I was like, I don't even have to watch, because I had Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, and Jahmyr Gibbs with like a 30-point lead, and he ended up with 2 guys who got him like 60. So anyway, but I'm 3-0 in that league, so I can't complain too much. Either way, so let's kind of reset. Let's reset where the Saints are and where the NFL standings are at large, right? So, there's the Lions still haven't played yet. They're 2-1, so we'll kind of have to wait and see on that in the NFC. But generally speaking, 2-2 is a very popular record. So the teams in the NFC that are 2-2: Cowboys, Eagles, 49ers, Bears, Packers, which is a really funny 2-2 because it's Malik Willis is 2-0 and Jordan Love is 0-2. And then Falcons, Saints. So that is 9 teams in the NFC that are 2-2. Now there's a handful of teams that have a better record, and these are, if you tell me these are the teams you expected to have a better record than 2-2 at this point in the season, you are a liar. Because one of those is the Commanders, who lost their first game, then have won the next 3. The other one is the Seahawks, who still have yet to play, but they are 3-0. The Vikings, who are 4-0, and the Buccaneers, who are 3-1. And
Sam Darnold-led Vikings.
The Sam Darnold Vikings, man. 4-0. There's only, 2 teams in the NFL that are 4-0? The one the Saints play next week, which is the Chiefs, and the Vikings. Now, let's loop around to the other conference. And yeah, there's only one 4-0 team. There's a few 3-1 teams. So the Texans, Steelers, another team like these quarterbacks, man, Justin Fields, they did lose, but they're 3-1. And the Bills are 3-1. They got their ass kicked by the Ravens last night. And the Ravens are 2-2, but they're still my Super Bowl team. Either way, you go back, and I've watched a few of these Chiefs games. Obviously, I watched the one against the Falcons. I caught up on the Chiefs game from yesterday. They really should have lost. The Chargers were up 10-0 and then did not score for the remainder of that game. Missed a field goal. They should have won that game and they did not. The Chiefs are limp into these wins. Like, that is one of the ugliest 4-0s you'll see in these games.
But like Kamara says, in the end, though, they somehow they find a way to do it.
No, I agree. And like, winning is winning. But like if Isaiah Likely had like a size 12 instead of a size 14, right, that's a loss. Yesterday, they should have lost that game. They're now without Rashid Rice. Because Rashid Rice, Pat Mahomes threw an interception, then went to go make a tackle, wiped out Rashid Rice's knee, and he's done. You could see his knee in that clip go the wrong way. Like, right, he's done for the year. He had to get carted off the field. So that's a weapon for them. Xavier Worthy is now going to just run real fast as often as possible. And, he's probably, you look at Rashid Shaheed and what does he do well? Like, that's what they're going to try to do with Rashid Rice. Just run straight, catch it. No, I mean, that's a struggling Chiefs team. Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce kind of got their connection going a little bit, but yeah, Kelce has been disappointing to this point in the season. That said, the Saints have been the greatest victory for tight ends. I don't even know. I don't even have a funny thing to say on that. Right. About it. But like, the Saints have a way of making tight ends look like superstars. Now, not the Kyle Pitts type tight end, not the unicorn tight ends, the traditional Travis Kelce tight end, like the big kind of guy who's going to run in the middle of the field and out physical you. Like, that's always been my thing with Kyle Pitts, is he plays like a wide receiver. He gets bullied. Guys like Travis Kelce, even like a David Njoku, right? Like the big bodied dudes who are going to bully you out of the way. They just have a hard time with that.
Oh, what's his name from Detroit? Hawkinson. Oh, my Lord.
He's with the Vikings, right?
Now, right,
Laporta. Yeah. Now, he used to be with Detroit. Hawkinson used to be with Detroit. They traded him to the Vikings, and they drafted Laporta. Laporta beat him tore him to shreds last year. Hawkinson tore him to shreds last year. Goddard tore him to shreds in week 3. Now, the Cowboys didn't really have a tight end. The Panthers didn't really have a tight end. Right. So, that's clearly a matchup. They can't, and that's the thing. Like, I can't look at, the Saints handled Kyle Pitts. Suddenly I feel like they handled tight ends. Cause like I said, Kyle Pitts doesn't play like a tight end. Kyle Pitts plays like a a big wide receiver that is not particularly physical. And you can just lock a cornerback on him and say good luck. So I don't know. I that's going to be my question. But either way, Saints Chiefs next week. I don't think a lot of people are going to give the Saints a lot of hope to win that game.
No.
And the national TV element of it, the Monday Night Football element of it, does give me some pause. But I've watched the Chiefs play. I've watched the Saints play. I don't see the Chiefs as being markedly better than the Saints. Now, obviously, they have Pat Mahomes, and Pat Mahomes is Pat Mahomes. And at the end of the day, if the Saints defense gets on the field and needs to get a stop against Pat Mahomes in the final moments of that game, I don't like their chances. But I have watched Derek Carr in several games against the Chiefs, and he steps up in those matchups. Can you block Chris Jones? I don't know. But I think you're going to go into that game and you're going to feel really negative about this team. I think they can walk in there and win that game.
Andy Reid's a problem too. Obviously, a great head coach you're going against.
Yeah. And he's an offensive wizard. He's going to find ways. But you have an extra day to prepare for him. You know what they want to do. They don't have a running back right now. I mean, obviously, Kareem Hunt, maybe he gets a bigger role. Carson Steele is a rookie that I'm not particularly concerned
Carson
about.
Steele.
He does. It's a pretty good name. It sounds like a Marvel character.
Or like American Gladiators, I was thinking. I don't know. Do you know American Gladiators or no?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
How young do you think I am?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of what time
I remember
that came out even.
The Q-tip things. They knock people off the things with. I got
awesome.
Come on. I grew up on Nickelodeon Snick. I was around.
See, I don't know what that is.
Really? Yeah, you don't remember all the games
Snick
like the Legends of the Hidden Temple and stuff like that?
No.
What? Double Dare? You don't remember this? They had
Double Dare, I know. Yeah.
Stuff out of nose, and it was all the goop and you don't know Legends of the Hidden Temple, like blue barracudas and silver snakes, and
I don't remember all that.
What the hell? Who are you? All I know is if one of those like temple guards came out and tried to grab me, like I would 1000% just punch him in the face. And it always amazed me that these kids were just like, "Oh no!" like Ron Swanson. I completely lost track of what I was going to say. Oh, but American Gladiator. Where were we?
Talking about the. Yeah, I don't know what the hell.
Carson Steele. Yeah, he sounds
Carson
like
Steele. Yeah, there you go.
Secret identity for a Marvel superhero. Like, no, that's just Carson Steele. He's just a regular guy. And oh my God, he put a mask on. That's the guy. No, but he had a pretty bad fumble in that game. I expect Kareem Hunt over time will start to take those carries away. And I don't know exactly how long Isaiah Pacheco is going to be out. I haven't really kept track of that injury, but
I don't think he's coming back this week, though.
No, I don't think so either. So, I feel good about that. Like, that's a banged up team. Their defense is good. Their defense is talented, and we'll see how that goes. But I just think everyone's going to be like, hey, the Saints are on a 3-game losing streak before we even get to that game. And I have a feeling it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a close game. Either way, you look at the Saints' next 3 opponents. So you have the Chiefs on Monday night. You get an extra day to go into that matchup. Then you have the Bucs in the Superdome, Week 6. That's a team that's playing very well, although they just got rocked by the Broncos. So, it's easy to overreact and say, wow, they just blew out the Eagles. I think a lot of times you'll see a team play a tough game, bounce back, and then kind of level out. So we'll see how the Bucs look this week, and go from there. I think that Broncos defense is just really good. So we'll see how that shows up on Thursday night when the Broncos show up in the town the week after that. It's going to be the second consecutive short week for the Saints, a team that's already dealing with injuries. Suddenly, I'm starting to feel like, man, I'm not feeling great about that matchup, although Bo Nix has done nothing to make me feel like I should be worried about him. And we'll go from there. But Bucs are 3-1. You go into that matchup feeling like, hey, if the Saints can win in Week 6, which they did well against Baker Mayfield in the Week 18 or Week 17 matchup last year. So maybe they have a book on them a little bit. They obviously, it's a different coordinator with Liam Cohen. But I do feel like you should be able to look at that game with confidence, knowing what you did to them in a game that they had to win in Week 17 to clinch the NFC South.
It's a pretty wild schedule because now this week the Bucs are playing the Falcons.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But yeah, so here's the thing. So the teams you're going up against now, the Panthers fell back to earth against the Bengals. So they're both those teams are 1-3. But so you're looking
Andy
at
Dalton
it, you say,
pretty good though,
huh?
Andy Dalton did decent.
Yeah, he's going to continue to do just well enough to, win you a couple games and not give Bryce Young his job back. That's the book on Andy Dalton. He will make your quarterback miserable, make him look bad, and then kind of be Andy Dalton. And then you're going to go into next season being like, well, it wasn't terrible, but we're definitely not going to go with Andy Dalton again. Now, the guy, the most bizarre story of the past several years is Joe Flacco, who apparently just shows up and wins games anywhere. He showed up in Indy and won that game for the Colts yesterday after Anthony Richardson got hurt, which again, it's like, that's my thing with Anthony Richardson. We can be excited about him. He's going to keep getting hurt the way he plays. But all right, so you're going up against Chiefs, they're 4-0. Week after that, Bucks 3-1. Week after that, Broncos, they're currently 2-2. Week after that, Chargers in LA, they are 2-2. Week after that, Panthers, they're currently 1-3. Week after that, you are hosting the Falcons. They are 2-2. Week after that, you are hosting the Browns, who are currently 1-3 and look very, very bad. Then you have the Rams in New Orleans. Now, that's going to be a question of who exactly the Rams have for that matchup.
Right.
You're at a point that they might start to get some of these players back, but they are currently 1-3. That does not look like a particularly difficult matchup right now. Now, that's on paper. Then you are hosting the Giants, a team with a good defense, but I will always, I'm sorry, you're traveling to meet the Giants, a team with a good defense, but I will always take my chances against Daniel Jones. He's freaking terrible. He cannot throw the ball deep to save his life. Malik Neighbors is that good, but not good enough to rescue my opinion of Daniel Jones.
Who's the Giants lead back? Devin
Singletary.
Devin Singletary, right?
Yeah, not exactly striking fear into the hearts of Saints fans. Then host the Commanders, visit the Packers. Now that Giants game will be cold weather, so that's going to be a factor. You go to Green Bay on December 23rd. That's going to be one of the coldest games I will ever experience in my life. Then you host the Raiders, then you host the Bucks. So I see a lot of wins on the backside of that schedule. You need to find a way to go 2-1. I take that back. You really want to find a way to go 2-1 over the next 3 games. And you can go into your second half of your schedule effectively at even, because I feel like there's more wins than losses on the backside of that schedule. I will accept 1 and 2 if it's a loss to the Chiefs, a loss to the Broncos, and a win over the Bucks. But I think if you can find a way to beat the Bucks at home and then find a way to beat the Broncos, which take advantage of Bo Nix, find a way, that's acceptable too. This next 3 games is going to be pivotal. Like, you can't go 0-3. That's the only thing you cannot do is go 0-3. Like 3 and 4, you can work your way back from that. There's a lot of wins again on the back end of that schedule. 2 and 5.
No, it obviously sucks what happened. Philadelphia in the Falcons game, both wins that seem that were given away, and I think we saw a little bit too much of that. Obviously, last season with this team, that there were winnable games. They weren't able to pull them out, and obviously, that's a disturbing trend that's continued now early on after that gangbuster start where everybody was seeing rainbows and puppy dogs.
Yeah, it's disturbing, but at the same time, close. So many games in the NFL are close. Now,
I guess to go along with it is the trend of what's happened, and then with the injuries.
No, it's an issue, but like you're being competitive in these games, and it's not it's one thing that I'll say for the Dennis Allen era is there are very few games that get away from them. A lot of them seem to come down to the wire. A lot of them are close. You just haven't won enough close games. But like you look at like the Bucks, like they're 3-0, and their loss was getting blown out by the Broncos, right? Like that's why I look at the Chiefs and I see a team that's won a lot of tight games and is kind of like on the cusp of that kind of blowout loss. I could see it happening because that's what it always seems like. After a while, you win a bunch of close games, and then it's like you kind of lose your edge slightly and you have some key players out. And
Dennis is going to have to be in his bag against Mahomes, as they say.
Yeah, and again, it's easy to lose perspective after a 2-2 start, and so like it's all been terrible. It's like you won 2 games big, you had really strong offensive performances, and you beat up on a Panthers team that's bad. Let's be real, they're really bad. But then you beat up on a Cowboys team that's decent. They're 2-2, right? Then you lost a close game to the Eagles, a team that's decent to good. It's 2-2. Then you lost a close game to the Falcons, a team that's decent to good. They're 2-2. So, that's kind of where you are. Like this is how the NFL wants it. They want parity. They want all these games to come down to one score. Sometimes they come out in your end. Sometimes they don't. You need to start winning some of these one score games. And hopefully you've gotten the bad luck out. That's the best way I can put it, is hopefully the luck starts to swing in your favor.
Well, they better get some kind of shaman or witch doctor, whatever, to unleash whatever nastiness has been put upon them. Because I don't know. The obviously when you hear sometimes it's better to get blown out. Like at least you're like, all right, the game plan didn't work, you didn't execute. But when it comes down to these really close matchups and back-to-back weeks, it's an extra kick to the gut and to the nuts.
Yeah, I think that is what it is. Like it's like you can say like, hey, we're competitive in all these games. That's a good thing. But at the same time, somehow getting blown out feels better, because then you're not so emotionally invested in it, and you can at least use that as like a wake up call. Like I wouldn't be surprised. Like I was saying, like the Bucs, it's like, hey, you had one of your worst games of the season against the Broncos, and you had one of your best games of the season against the Eagles the next week. Sometimes that's kind of, and then you could say the same thing about the Saints last year. They had one of their worst games of the season in Week 16 against the Rams, and then the next week they had probably their best game of the season they had their best 2 games of the season against the Falcons and Bucs. So I don't know. Maybe they do need a blowout loss. Maybe they should have just gone into Atlanta and got boat raced. Then we'd be like, they're totally going to beat the Chiefs.
You worried that obviously early on with the freakish touchdowns that the Falcons got, and you're like, oh crap, what are we headed in for today? But damn, that defense did its job until they didn't.
It sure did.
Man.
All right. We will be coming back later in the week with an injury update. Now, this is obviously going to be a weird one.
That should be thrilling.
Well, the first injury report of the week won't come out until Thursday. So I'll probably try to do something on Wednesday, but it's these mesh. Like we won't be able to have our typical Wednesday episode breaking down the initial injury report because we won't get one until Thursday. So we'll have to figure something out. Either way, it's going to mess up the schedule this week. I really don't want to record a podcast to post on Sunday or Saturday. So we'll figure it out. I'll let y'all know. But either way,
envious this week. You get a trip to Arrowhead, a stadium I have not been to.
Yeah, and it's not that cold yet, so that's going to be nice. In a couple months, that trip to Arrowhead would be abject misery. This time of year, it's like, it's going to be kind of nice to get. I'll have to wear a jacket, but
Jeff will be hanging with Tay-Tay.
God, I hope she's there. Yeah, I can finally unleash. I'll wear like a Taylor Swift shirt under my
breakaway.
So when I end up in a photographer's lens. Yeah. All right, who dat? Go Saints. Thanks for everyone who commiserated. And we'll be back at you later in the week with a live stream and probably a mailbag of some sort so we can hear all your grievances and I'll eat them, digest them, and see what comes out the other end.
Sadly, it's bourbon o'clock there, Who Dat Nation. It is bourbon o'clock.
Day drinking. What better than that? What's better than this? Guys being dudes. All right, y'all. Who dat? Easy.
Later, folks.